Once the sun hits these bodies, these things get cooked. Most of us are wedding videographers, so we know that this is a situation that we're gonna be in. But one thing I noticed is I have shot the camera a lot without all these things in the heat, and I've been okay. So the overheating has been more in my testing than it has been on the job.
Overheating and wedding filmmaking has been a hot topic in the LUMIX world. Well, in today's episode, I'm sitting with Steven Dorn, who is a wedding filmmaker who's been shooting this past summer on the S1 II and the S1R Mark II from LUMIX. Now, in today's episode, we're gonna be specifically talking about how overheating's been happening, his experiences with it, his solutions to fix the overheating issues on these LUMIX cameras, the different things that he's been encountering with it, and overall his theories on why it's really happening. But without further ado, Steven, I think I gave just to my audience a little bit of context of who you are and kind of what you do. I think just to my audience directly, can you just tell them who you are, what you do, professionally speaking, and different things like that? Just to kind of get this episode rolling, warmed up before we get into the major topics.
So I am a videographer in Orange County, and I do that professionally full-time with my wife. We do a lot of weddings, we do corporate work, light commercial branding. And I'd say probably about 80% of our business is weddings right now, wedding video.
Now, I do have some warm-up questions and like spitfire, like rapid fire questions.
Sure.
So first off, how did you get introduced to LUMIX as a whole? And then what was that first LUMIX camera that you ever owned from the brand?
I wanted to get into video for fun. I was playing in bands and we were filming stuff for our band, and I got a GH4. One of my friends had one, and so I picked one up, and that was my first experience with LUMIX, and I loved it. It was a great camera. I didn't really know what I was doing back then, but definitely the image was so much better than other cameras I had used for fun or at school and stuff like that.
Now, we kind of talked about a little bit prior to him recording. You did shoot on other cameras after the GH4. What was that process? You know, you've owned the GH4. Do you have the GH5 too?
At the time, no. That was a couple years later.
Yeah, then you got the GH5. When did you switch over to the LUMIX S5 II and the S5 IIX?
So my journey with LUMIX has been a long journey. I started on the GH4. I moved to the Canon C100. After that, thinking I needed a big boy camera, something that would be more respectful for production. And at the time, that's what I could afford. And then the EOS R came out. And all the Peter McKinnon videos and everything kind of sold me on that being potato jet and all these people talking about it. And so to me, that was like the end all be all camera. And then from there, I ended up moving to Sony, and I was on the Sony, I think A6400s and A7 IIIs. I had a couple of each of those bodies. And then I got sick of Sony. I got sick of Canon. And actually, no, sorry. I went to Sony, back to Canon. And I was on the R6 and the R5, and then I moved to the cinema line, the C70s and the R5Cs. And from there, I actually jumped backwards to the GH5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you went from like higher end, better quality, better, or not quality, but better shoot settings to back to the GH5.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the GH5, to be fair, was one of the first cameras that shot 4K, I believe.
Right.
In a mirrorless body. It was 10-bit. You had Vlog L and different things like that. Fast forwarding now, you know, you have the S5 II, the S1 II. What is your current camera go-to setup right now? What is like your favorite cameras, favorite lens, combos, different things like that?
Yeah, I still have my S5 IIs. I use them a lot. I have 3 of those bodies. And then I have the S1 II and the S1R2 are kind of my A cams. And I really like those setups. I mostly use Sigma and LUMIX lenses. So like the 16-35 f4, the Sigma 28-70. And then I have a lot of the like 50 LUMIX, was it 1.8?
Yep.
The
like the
85 prime, and then I still use like some mix of Canons, so I'll adapt like we have a couple 70-200s and like the 135 f2. Right. So
those L to EF. Yeah. So I'm curious to hear then, because you were telling me earlier that you, right when the YouTube videos came out, the S1R Mark II came out, it seemed like it was super hyped up. Same with the S1 II on both of these. What was those initial impressions? Because you pre-ordered the camera before it got into the real hands of people who aren't working with these brands directly. You pre-ordered these cameras, you got them yourself. what was those initial impressions from like, I want this camera to actually having the camera in your hands? As someone who bought, because you have no association like directly with Lumix. You bought the S1R Mark II. You bought two S1IIs with your own money, and you still own them.
Yes.
So what are those thoughts on like impressions to actually owning?
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, the reason I wanted the S1R2 when it first was announced, I had no idea the S1II was going to come out. So was low light. That was my biggest. I think everybody has different reasons for wanting to upgrade. I thought the S5IIs were amazing. We shoot some 60p for our work, so the crop didn't bother me as much, but it was annoying to have a crop when you had to like change focal lengths to match what you would be in 24 and go back and forth. But the biggest thing for me was the low light. We almost bought a couple Sony cameras just for some of the darker events. I know that's more for our business, and I have friends that are like, I don't care for, I light everything, and there's times that we can't. It's very run and gun in our business. So we needed something with like a more robust low light option that I didn't want to denoise like every single clip for the night. And so that was the initial reason behind buying it. And then when I did buy it, I fell in love with it.
And this is the S1R
This is the S1R Mark II. So when I first got it, I noticed so many things upgraded for me personally.
And you would say the low light is better on the S1R2 than the S5 too?
Yes.
Even though the dual native ISO base is 1,000 and 2,000 depending on your dynamic range expansion.
And I think from the tests that I did and right away getting back footage from the work we were doing, I noticed it probably because of like the lower megapixel count. I think that's what it kind of like hides the noise, but it also it's brighter. So like if you put it up to an S5 II with the same ISOs, I noticed that the image was actually brighter. So like if you're at 1,000 with the S1R2 and you're at 1,000 with the S5 II at the same frame rate, it was brighter.
Yeah.
So I noticed that right away, and then I started seeing reviews about that. So that was my experience.
Now, did you experience overheating on the S1R Mark II before you got the S1 II?
Yes. So the S1R Mark II I got, and because we shoot in California, it gets really hot. We shoot a lot of weddings outside. A lot of our ceremonies are outdoors, and they generally are 30 to 40 minutes long. And so that was a concern for me because I started to see overheating videos online, and in the groups I heard people talking about it. So I know online there's a ton of stuff about why would you need to put your camera in the sun? Well, this is a situation where we have like 5 cameras in the sun to 6 cameras in the sun. We don't always have shade. We don't always have the perfect situation to do that. And we have cameras running the whole time. And sometimes we shoot like a toast outside and the speeches, and it's in the sun because the sun's still out. It's like later in summer and whatnot. And then we've done a lot of corporate stuff. I just shot a triathlon in the sun. It was like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
It was like constantly shooting at 60 frames a second. Like, so we are in the sun.
Right.
Like enough for it to be a problem. And so I started testing it out myself. Luckily, it started to get hot around that time. We had like a little heat wave of about 77 to like 82 degrees. And I noticed it overheated immediately. I mean, I would have it in 24 frames a second. I would have it in 60 frames a second. I would have it in 1080p. I was trying different things, and it started me on this path to figure out how to mitigate the overheating. And because of the way my brain works, I wanted to understand why too. So I really got involved with a lot of groups and a lot of research with other friends online and other friends in the industry to try different things. And I love the camera.
Yeah.
So I really liked all the features it gave me. It was just the overheating thing that kind of bothered me.
Right. So I'm curious to hear because I guess also add more context for my audience. Steven is a big contributor to the LUMIX Facebook groups. A lot of his videos showing his overheating tests and like his rigs you can see on that Facebook group. I'll put links down below if I remember. But there's like videos of you kind of rigging out this camera. So I guess I'd be curious, what is kind of, I guess, in general speaking, the rig build outs that you're doing or to prevent or eliminate or try to minimize the overheating issues in general?
Yeah.
And you feel free if you need to grab anything too.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much my rig is this camera. I try to keep it as light as possible. So I'm trying to do build outs where I don't need to make the camera as big as possible. Especially because I do a lot of gimbal work. I do a lot of handheld work, long hours, you know. So I tried a bunch of different things, including like full rigs.
Right.
And down to an SSD hanging off the camera or, you know, using a dummy battery. The one that I've been using the most is just taking out the CFast card. It's a CF Express card.
Yeah.
That has been like one of the biggest game changers. And when I figured out that the SSD in my own tests with the S1R2 and the S1 II, when I figured out the SSD recording was just as effective as removing the CF Express card, that was kind of a game changer to me because you could just pop a card out instead of having to hook up all this stuff.
Right. So I'm also curious, since as a wedding filmmaker, we're talking, you have backups on backups on backups.
Yeah.
You know, you have your main footage. If it's a big wedding, you'll have SD cards, whatever media used for that card, just standing as a backup, and you don't reuse those cards. You have like what, 2 or 3 other hard, like physical drive backups as well on top of that. And then you have cloud footage backup.
Yeah.
So I'm curious then to hear your thoughts on dual recording, because as a wedding filmmaker, a lot of people were like, but I want to dual record. What's been kind of your solution and also hopes for LUMIX to implement other things in the future with that?
Yeah, so one of the issues with taking out the CF Express card is that you only have one source of recording. So that was something that bothered me. The idea was if I do a shoot all day, I generally don't have any overheating issues, and I would just pop the CF Express card out for a moment where I would need to do a long take in the sun. So let's say a ceremony, a toast, or a long, I don't know, if we're doing portraits for like 40 minutes, which is not common in my business, but or if I'm doing an interview outside, I would pop the CF Express card out. And then I ran into the issue of what happens if the CF Express or the SD card failed, like you said. So I had to do some research. I talked to some friends online and was throwing out posts, and I found out that you can have an SSD running and you can do a backup proxy to your SD card. So that became a new option for me to explore. And obviously with the cost of SSDs, how light they are now, it's not as much of a problem. My worry before was what happens if I knock the SSD off and lose the footage. So a couple things that I found out and that I learned, which is great, is to do a backup onto your SD card. It's a proxy backup. It's also a 1080p file. So if anything does happen, yes, you lose that 4K or 5.9K, but at least you have something you can deliver to the client for that short amount of time that you lost something. The other thing I found out is that if you did have a file corruption, let's say the SD card corrupted for some reason, that you could fix it in camera, which was a really neat implementation by LUMIX I didn't know about till recently. And I've had file cards corrupted, not on LUMIX, but on like Sony cameras and Canon cameras. So that is something that I thought was super innovative.
That's on the playback menu. I feel like a lot of people don't explore the playback menu. There's so many features. Like a lot of people don't even know about raw processing for photos. Like so many good features on that menu system that provide extra support for like when it's a situation like that. Have you ever had or experimented if you're recording and say your SSD unplugged, would it continue recording that proxy on your SD card or would it stop the recording?
That I haven't tried.
Okay. I'd be curious on a test like that. And then of course, I've heard also other people talking about it'd be great if eventually LUMIX allows you to have your footage be dual recorded on an SSD and an SD card. And I think that's like the solution, which is an easy I say easy. It's a firmware update, and LUMIX is known for firmware updates. So I think if it's a request from the community, and especially people who need dual recording, I think that's very likely to come within the next year or so, realistically speaking, on how much resources and development I think R&D they want to spend on a feature like that, which it seems, in your case and a lot of people's case scenarios in that industry, super valid to have. But there's also another benefit, I guess, to throw on that. With proxies, you can use frame.io / camera to cloud and have your proxies in real time if you have a cellular connection or something like that to your camera. and have a remote editor. I know you haven't done this, but I really would love for you to implement it.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really good idea. I was like, yeah, I haven't thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that like if it's a Saturday and your editor is not working on Saturday, that's a
Yeah.
whole other situation. But it's like a way to be like, hey, on Monday morning, my editor already has the footage and I don't have to do Saturday night or Sunday for yourself, upload all of that footage. It's already uploaded to the cloud. He can edit all the proxies, send you the editing file. You replace the editing file with the normal footage instead of the proxies. And then your video is done without having to upload any of the higher quality stuff to have your editor do it. Obviously, that's maybe one more step for you to like do it, or eventually, you know, he can be editing and then next week you can upload the footage to the cloud to have him do it.
Being like really helpful for like corporate too, because I wouldn't need as many camera bodies to do that with, and the footage is definitely not as intense as like a wedding.
Right. I guess now run over, we talked about dual recording, we talked about the SSD. Has your camera overheated on you since you've done your overheating rigs? And let's dive also into how you overheat. Like, what's your rig setup? How do you make your cameras not overheat as likely?
So another thing that I figured out through talking to other people online and trying different things as an external fan. So it seemed like the camera bodies get so hot from the CF Express card and then from the battery. But we also noticed that, and when I say we, it's other keyboard warriors online or we're at home trying different things because we're trying to use these cameras. We really like them. And that's such a weird issue to have because LUMIX has never given us overheating. I mean, I've put the S5 II in the most brutal conditions for a long time. Yeah. Not because I want to, because I have to. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like I've shot a wedding in Palm Springs that was like 40-minute ceremony and it was like 100 and something.
Yeah. I do have a hypothesis, but we'll touch point on that in a second. Continue.
Yeah. And so finding like a fan that would go behind here would make a huge difference. So one of my friends online found a fan that's made for like one of the Sony cameras that has a similar flip screen, and it was like $40 on Amazon, and that made a huge difference. And so I was just trying to figure out ways to, if I could pop a CF Express card out and put a fan, you know, not make it a huge setup. Obviously it is a pain. Right. Nobody wants to do these things, but when you don't have time and you need to work and you know, pay your bills, you're out there just trying to figure out whatever solutions.
So now specifically, and you can say yes on the S1Rii Mark II or the S1 II no, or however it is, since you've done that, has the camera overheated on you since with these like rig solutions? And you've been in 90-degree direct sun too.
Yeah. So using these like precautions, I guess, it hasn't.
And what are your settings on the camera?
So we're shooting a lot with the fan on high. So if it's hot at all, let's say it's 79 degrees or hotter, and I know I'm going to be in the sun, we will put all our cameras on fan high. I've never touched any thermal settings in the S5 II, so our side angles have always just been how they were, and I just don't mess with them.
So high thermal management, and then
high thermal management,
fast on the fan speed.
And then with Auto 1, I know we talked about Auto 1 seems to do better if you're like in the shade and it's hot. I mean, basically, I know you're going to get to this, but it's the sun. Yeah. Once the sun hits these bodies, these things get cooked. And it's not just sitting out in the sun. I've shot it in like 75-degree weather, 76, and been fine. Right. But it's like when the sun is at a certain UV index, I know that's a huge talk online. There's been tons of times when I've tested these, it was like 11, which is really high. I did take it to Utah, shot in the sun. The UV index was like 6 and it was 90 degrees and the cameras were fine. So we did 2 weddings out there, and
see, this man sounds a lot more intelligent. I said something about UV rays online and someone said it's actually infrared rays of the sun. I'm like, dog, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just finding the information and trying to figure it out.
I was you like a month ago. I was like, there's no such thing as an index of U. What is that? And then I looked on my iPhone, their app, and I was like, there's a UV index thing here.
No, I mean, I know what UV is, because like my wife and I tried to tan during summer, so we're oh, UV's 11, we need to be at the beach right now. So that's besides the point. Because I mean, it is a factor at the end of the day. It's like the sun is hitting the rays in general. If it's infrared rays, if it's UV rays, regardless, how the sun hits the camera is going to impact the camera at any terms mean. If I think like we were talking earlier, it's like if Sony came out with an FX3 Mark II, that's the exact same camera size as this one with the exact same specs. Granted, it's probably going to be $5,000 or $4,500 instead of
Never go down in price.
Yeah. That's a whole other side tangent. Lumix is one of the only companies that hasn't raised their prices for cameras because of the whole whatever it's called.
Constantly lowers their price and gives
Yeah,
rebates.
constant lowers in pricing. Why am I blanking out in the U.S.? What's happening? If not inflation,
Tariffs.
Tariffs. Yes, that's the word. The only company that hasn't done tariffs.
That's true.
Any camera that is this small would overheat with what it's capable of doing.
Absolutely.
Like, it's you're expecting something like people are. It's I feel on both sides because of course as a consumer I'm like, well, I don't want it to overheat. So I guess kind of diving in, what are some of those working theories? And you've brought up things that I'm like, I haven't even thought about earlier. What are some of those things that you think what's causing the overheating apart from the sun and how it's affecting the camera heat wise? Because obviously the sun, heat on the camera, and it's impacting it a lot. But what are some of the other things that you kind of pointed out?
Yeah. So just to preface this, you know, a lot of these things were like working theories between like our friends online, and these are people all over the country.
Yeah.
I mean,
this isn't official information.
Yeah, this isn't official information, and there was like a group of people online that most of us were wedding videographers, so we know that this is a situation that we're going to be in, and a lot of us shoot in the sun, and we live in America. You know, it gets hot.
Yeah.
In a lot of parts of this country, so we kind of had like this little group online where we would discuss different theories, not to bash on Lumix. We just wanted to figure out solutions and understand with our own curiosity, like why these things were doing what they were. So obviously the CF Express card, which everybody knows.
Yep.
We tried so many different cards.
Produces a lot more heat.
And we tried them in similar situations. I bought so many cards, and I can say that the Angel Birds, yes, they get really hot faster than any other card, but the other cards we'd noticed such a small difference changing cards that eventually that theory for me was, in my testing, was like, forget it, and between my friends as well. One thing I noticed is when you open the camera, the body is like really thin. So it doesn't have as much room. If you put it next to like a, let's say an S5 II or a Sony FX3, there's so much more room. Even an A7S III, they're thicker where this is indented in. So as much as I love this screen, I'm wondering if, because they're trying to make it as thin as possible and make the screen happen, are they pushing everything closer to the internals, which are getting hot?
Right. Yeah, because if this screen, theoretically, like you were saying, was, I mean, it's not possible unless Lumix fully changed this body and revamps it, but that would be a, you know, Mark III at that point.
Right.
If this screen went out this far instead, you know, that much of a difference can allow these fans having way more airflow in the back of them, or even having, you know, having holes right here. I've always talked about, I think it would have been great if they made this an inch bigger, hit the GH7 like fan design on the back, and then still have this flip up tilt screen action. So same fans on the side of the camera right here, but then giving you this better flip up screen. But that's a great point. Way thinner body in comparison to the S1 II. Even though this is bigger as a whole than the S1 II in terms of the grip size, this physical part right here where the sensor and the heat is happening is way thinner. What are some of your other thoughts and theories?
Obviously, like everyone says, tilt the screen out. I think we all pretty much did that. Most experienced filmmakers were doing that.
Yeah.
From our, you know, the old Canon and Sony days where everything's keep the screen out. It's too hot.
Are you tilting the screen out like
getting
this?
it away from the body,
or like this?
As far from the body as you can.
Yeah.
The battery is one of the things that I've tested a bunch of stuff with the battery, and the battery to me is very confusing because the battery does generate heat. Mm-hmm. And I know because I've used a dummy battery and it's made not a huge difference, but it's made a big difference. But when you so I ended up buying the grip right away because I knew about the overheating with the S1R2. So a lot of people online, even Lumix people, were saying use the grip and it helps with overheating. So when I bought the grip, I tried different combinations of no battery inside, one battery in the grip, you know, using a dummy battery in the grip. And I didn't really see a big difference. I didn't feel like the grip helped much with overheating in the sun.
Yeah.
And that's a use case that I'm trying to fix, you know, or at least work around. So the battery is a little confusing to me because even when you put the battery grip in, you put a battery inside the grip only.
Yeah.
There's no internal battery. You put your hand in there, it's still hot.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as hot as if there was a battery in there. So I didn't really understand that part. And then like an external fan, which is a pain, but it was one of my friends found it online. I thought about a fan and I just didn't think they made one. But yeah, it fits right in the back of here, and you can plug it into a V mount, or you can.
How do you put that on your camera?
So it's
like how do you rig it? Do you have Velcro back there, or?
No, it has. So I took the little fan and I put little drops of, what is it?
Super glue?
Not super glue, hot glue.
Oh, okay.
And it made little points where it could like hook on there. And obviously I'm not doing any kind of crazy movements with it, but if I'm shooting something hot and probably stagnant, it just sits right there. So it's not a big deal. I do it with gimbal, stuff like that. But one thing I noticed is I have shot the camera a lot without all these things in the heat, and I've been okay. So the overheating has been more in my testing than it has been on the job. But a lot of people that I've communicated with online who don't understand what I was trying to like figure out were like, well, why don't you just use it?
Right.
And just push it to its limits on a job. And then, like, my response to that is I'm getting paid a lot of money to shoot something that I can only shoot once.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a live event.
Yeah, you don't want anything going wrong.
Yeah, you don't want anything going wrong, and it's just embarrassing to a client.
You don't want to get sued.
I want to get sued. I don't want to have to give a refund, you know?
Yeah.
And so it sounds good in theory. Like if I was playing in my yard and doing a little narrative piece, fine. I'll let it overheat and it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But to do it for like a paid project seems really crazy to me.
And I think that's a hard part, is a lot of people want people with these cameras to do these tests for them, which is totally understandable why. But the hard part is it just takes hours, like literally hours to film it, to watch it, to make sure what's happening to it, you know, pin it out in the sun. Also making sure no one just straight up robs your camera when you're not looking and like you're editing. Like, it's just a lot of work to do all these tests. And then when you're on the job sites, when you need the camera to perform, you don't want to try to do tests when you're getting paid.
Yeah.
You know, like as much as that sounds great, that just sounds like a nightmare of lawsuits or refunds or different things like that.
It's just not practical.
Right.
Yeah.
It is not practical at all. I've always had this like slight working theory in the back of my head when the S1R Mark II came out. Because I've been working with LUMIX as a brand as a whole, I've heard like how their overheating tests work and like their dust tests and their like freezing tests and different things like that. I'm curious, and this is not, I have no information if this is true or not, but with the LUMIX S9, that was like a camera, hey, we're putting record time limits, and everyone's like, we don't want record time limits. Just give us everything and we'll let our cameras overheat.
Yeah.
You know, that was like the theory. And I wonder if there was supposed to be time limits on the S1R Mark II or time limits on the S1 II on certain settings at one point, and it stopped those time limits because they're like, well, people are just going to want us to give them unlimited control, and because of that the cameras are overheating. But at the same time, it's like, well, you guys wanted it for the S9, so logically it makes sense people would want unlimited recording for these, you know, higher end models, which totally is valid, you know, but it's causing those overheating like issues. So I'm curious to hear now, even though you haven't experienced it, like once you've done like your different rigging solutions, different things like that, why do you prefer to shoot on a LUMIX camera and have to jump through these hoops right now?
Yeah, I think to answer that is like the value. We shoot with 5 to 6 bodies, especially for like a wedding or a live event. And so we have a team of 2 to 3 shooters, sometimes more, and having to buy, let's say, that many FX3s.
That's true.
It's crazy. You know, it's like a lot of money, or that many, you know, any other brand. I mean, you got so many different brands that are not any more affordable, you know, for the features that we want. And so just that alone was worth it for us to stay on LUMIX as, you know, especially wedding filmmakers.
Right.
I feel like for corporate, you can use anything.
Yeah.
I mean, Sonys are all over corporate. You could use Canon cinema cameras, you know. But when you need something where you need a lot of bodies and you're recording for long amounts of times and having those flexibility in codecs, the color is fantastic.
Yeah.
My 2 biggest gripes with LUMIX forever were the low light and the autofocus. Now their autofocus is great.
Yeah.
I mean, the autofocus was pretty good on the S5 II, and now that my S5 IIs have become side angles, it works perfectly for that, you know. And I wasn't really unhappy with the auto. I was so happy that Lumix got autofocus.
Right.
That I was just excited
Yeah.
that that was a feature that so many people were griping about, and a lot of people left Lumix. You know, I originally left because of autofocus back in the day for Canon. And looking back now, I'm like, we have autofocus, we have low light now,
Yeah.
and like people are not complaining, not just complaining about the overheating, but complaining about all kinds of other things. You know, they want ND, internal NDs, and all these things. And I'm like,
It's a lot more nitpicky now
it's so crazy.
than it ever has been before, because people are wanting like, oh, we want this, we want this, we want this, and you're like, dog, name another camera that does what these cameras can do.
I know.
Like this small and at this price, you know? Like, and yes, there's overheating. Yes, that's like nothing like we're ignoring, but there's also the potential chance of like they're like firmware updates, you know, increasing the fan speeds or different things like that.
Which Lumix is great at, firmware updates.
Right.
So like that's kind of another thing everyone's talking about online, and I've thought of is they'll probably come up with somewhat of a solution. I mean, even Canon came up with one for the R5 when that was a huge deal.
Yeah.
And, you know, coming up with like maybe a codec that's a little less intensive on the sensor, or maybe there's some kind of like programming they can do to cool it down more somehow with the processing. So that, and then I really like the lenses. I feel like now Lumix is at a point where they're having more and more lens options, and they're affordable.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are the same size, the same filter threads. So using a gimbal or carrying them on you, it's so easy to switch them out. And I feel like for the value, there you go, more value.
Yeah.
I also feel like Vlog is an incredible codec.
Oh, yeah.
Just like the coloring for Vlog. I do mix a lot of Sony footage in our stuff from time to time. I shoot on Sony for other brands. Canon I shot on for years. I still mix Canon once in a while, and I can say that just per value, I mean, I like Vlog better than C-Log 2, C-Log 3, S-Log 3.
And it's also interesting. I mean, yes, there is Vlog L on older cameras or on like a 4/3 cameras, but regardless, all the cameras is just one log, which I'm like telling, like I'm saying to Lumix, I'm like, don't do a Vlog 2, don't do a Vlog 3 like other brands, because it's like anytime I get footage from someone who shoots on Sony, I always have to ask them, and then I have to label it somewhere what log profile this was. Like, because normally I'll just do like a CST and convert it to Panasonic like Vlog.
Right.
But I always have to be like, was this S-Log 2? Was this S-Log 3? Was this S-Log like Cine? What was the Gambit? And like, Vlog is so nice.
It's so nice.
It's so nice.
Yeah, I love it.
It gets better. It's a slightly different tones.
Yeah.
From camera to camera. Like S1IIs, personally speaking, I know everyone loves the color of the S1R Mark II. Personally speaking, I prefer the colors of the S1 II. Oh, nice. But I also prefer the dynamic range of the S1 II way more. And I always, in my mind, I'm always like, I can get the same color results as the S1R Mark II, but I can't get the same dynamic range results as the S1 II on the S1R Mark II.
Yeah.
So I always been like, if you're a video person, that's why I'm like, always just get the S1 II. It performs so much better in so many other aspects, like rolling shutter and whole like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just we're at a point with cameras now where I feel like the dynamic range is good on most cameras that are mirrorless, except for Canon.
Yeah.
Canon, I don't know what's going on with Canon. They've just been really slacking lately.
Yeah.
But I feel like with like Sony, Nikon, you know, Lumix, everyone's dynamic range is good. Everyone's autofocus is starting to get up to par with each other. Now I'm just kind of looking to see what's the next thing. To me, it's a perfect camera with the exception of the overheating.
Yeah. So I guess I'll have one more question as we're kind of landing the plane today's episode.
Sure.
But before that, where can all these lovely people check you out?
Yeah. So my business is stevendornfilms.com. And then I have a YouTube channel called Dorn to Film. It's DORN to Film.
There you go.
And that's my channel just to talk about camera gear and filmmaking. And
come on.
Yeah.
Sick, man. Well, last question. What do you want Lumix, like what do you want to see next from Lumix? Like you said, the S1 II, I have the S1R Mark II, but the S1 II is like nearly a perfect camera. This is how I rig it up to give everyone context. It's nearly a perfect camera apart from the overheating. So what would you want to see from Lumix in the future?
And I mean, I feel like they've given us so much stuff. I think
You can be as specific as you want. Matt Fraser, if you're watching this, I love you. Send me a text.
the overheating is like a big one for me. Other than that, I feel like the rest is nitpicky. I feel like everything is so great in it. We got all these like false colors. I feel like the autofocus is great.
False colors, so
The
nice.
false color is so
So
nice. It makes my
nice.
job. Even giving like my camera to a third shooter who's never used a Panasonic, and I'm like,
Yeah.
here's false color. Like, oh my god,
I always have
perfect.
I always have to forget, like when I have a director's or client's monitor and I'm running like my information to my own monitor.
Yeah.
I always like turn on false colors, like just to check my exposure on the camera now instead of my monitor. And then I forget that my client or the director is seeing my false colors on their end too. And I'm like, oh snap, you weren't supposed to see that.
That's so funny. They're like, what is
I'm like, oh man.
this? What Predator sees? What is this?
No, be specific though. Like, what would you want this in, like a similar design body? Would you want it in a box body? Like, what would your hopes be? What more specs do you want to see? Like,
Yeah.
what does that look like?
And I'm one of those crazy people who prefer a small body. So I would love everything in this exact body, but I know that's probably not logical, like from a design standpoint. So I wouldn't mind a slightly larger body and have to give up using like the same batteries and all that stuff to make it not overheat.
Yeah.
Far as like codecs, and I mean, it would be cool to have like B-raw internally, but I don't think it's necessary. I feel like that's something that would be more for me.
Yeah.
For like narrative work or
And
like.
would you want compression wise? Would you want 12x1, 8x1, 5x1, 3x1, or would you want all of them type of thing?
Probably just 12x1, just to, yeah, I'm not too crazy about all the.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like they did a great job with this camera. It definitely, both the S1R2 and the S1 II, I didn't think would be such an upgrade. I thought like, cool, it's gonna have better low light. I can shoot full frame. And then obviously when the S1 II came out, the open gate at 60, I do anamorphic stuff. I do a lot of open gate for corporate stuff. I thought that would be cool, an option to have. It was kind of a pipe dream.
Yeah.
I think I was talking about it with Dustin Armstrong at like NAB a couple years ago. And I was like, he's like, what would you want? I was like, man, if it only had like 60 frames a second open gate, I mean, like what else could we want? And then all of a sudden they're like 60 frames a second open gate. And I was like, wow. Okay, that's crazy. Because like most cameras don't even have open gate.
Right.
So I'm like, now you're giving us slow-mo open gate when we have to do those. Like I was shooting a triathlon the other day.
So
it was
nice.
great to shoot it in like open gate.
I was
slow-mo.
shocked about the difference that, like, because I've just been shooting everything in open gate. I was shocked about the difference of how much better the IBIS is on, like, if you shoot 4K 60, for example, versus 5.1K open gate 60. And it makes sense.
Yeah.
You're cropping in on the image, so theoretically the IBIS should be way better because it has more room to, like, do those type of maneuvers. But it is, like, so much better. I was like, dang, maybe I should shoot 4K 60 when I know I need like a gimbal shot.
Yeah.
But then most of the time I'm still shooting open gate 60. It's so nice. It looks so clean.
That's interesting. I didn't really notice that as much, so I'm gonna have to play around with that.
Yeah. And there's a pretty substantial difference of, like, you can get more closer to a gimbal shot with 4K 60 or just 4K whatever versus shooting open gate like full sensor.
Yeah, it makes sense because it's cropping in.
Yeah, you're cropping on the top and the bottom. Like, it's able to like slightly move that image if it needs be. I don't know how any of that works. I just shoot stuff and make it look pretty.
For sure. One thing I did notice too that was like huge about this camera, that if they made another or an S1H2, it'd kind of blow my mind, is how much better the like LCD screen was.
Oh yeah.
Because I've shoot a lot on Canon also and Sony, and like both the FX3 and like the Canon, was it the R5, the R6, the R5 Mark II, they have such a nice LCD screen. And I remember looking at my S5 II next to like an FX3 or like a Canon and being like, God, this screen is so much more inspiring. Yeah. Like the LCD, that I was like, this looks so dull. And I tried like different like view assist view assist LUTs, and I just didn't feel like I could find anything that like made me feel like this was like the image popping out at me. Yeah. And the first thing I noticed with the S1R2 is that the LCD was like looking at a mini monitor. Oh yeah. I was like, this is really like the clarity, the color, the saturation, like everything. I was like, this is amazing, like right out of box. And then now I've even noticed S1R2 is like slightly better than the S1 II with the LCD, which is weird, but Might be the megapixels, I don't know. But the other day I did a shoot and my third shooter was on an FX3 and we were comparing the LCD screens and he was like, yeah, that is nicer. Like he started to know, like it like surpassed what the competition was. So I thought that was like a weird, exciting thing that came from it. So I'm like looking forward to what else they push like for the next one.
Right, in terms of
internal NDs would be cool and everyone talks about it.
Would you prefer internal NDs or IBIS?
IBIS.
Okay.
I
feel like if you haven't shot on a LUMIX camera before,
100%.
Everyone would be like, I want internal NDs.
Right.
But then you're like, oh shoot, that IBIS is different. It is just built different. Like you try to like get the same type of like walking shot where you're casually walking on a Sony or on a Canon. It's just not the same. And it's like in a sense, like I bet there could be even circumstances for you where you're like, if you want, you could probably do gimbal shots. I would imagine.
Yeah, we do a lot of handheld for our work. And what's crazy is we're doing handheld with these tiny bodies.
Right, that's the only hard part.
Yeah, and I used to do handheld with huge rigs to mitigate like all the shake. And now it's like this little body. I have a video coming out soon with the FX3 versus the S1 II. And one of the parts that really stuck out to me was the IBIS test. And you could really see the difference in IBIS. And it was, I mean, like you said, anyone who's never shot on a LUMIX, it's like hard to explain. I felt like OpenGate was like that for a long time too. I would show OpenGate to friends and they'd be like, who cares? And then when they had to use it on a project, they were like, this is amazing.
The day when this like 3.5 mil jack becomes your 32-bit float,
oh my God,
that's gonna be so nice. And like you don't need an XLR2 adapter or anything like that. That would be so nice.
But look how far we've come. We didn't even have that.
Oh, right. Yeah, for sure.
How long ago? Like, I remember where 32-bit flow was like only in large recording devices.
I don't even think another camera has that yet. It's only LUMIX cameras. Sure, you have to use the XLR2 adapter to like retrieve 32-bit float. So it's like you having to pit something on.
Right.
However, the audio is being directly recorded onto an MOV file.
The Sony doesn't?
Sony doesn't.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, so you can, they have like wireless mics, which I would think LUMIX should come out with one too, via the hot shoe. But with an XLR2 on the GH7, all the S1 cameras, you get 32-bit float audio directly on your video file, on all your MOV files.
Yeah.
And it's like...
just great for interviews, great for running gun stuff. Yeah.
And it's like you can even like on the 3.5 mil jack on the XLR2, you can throw a wireless mic in and it's technically is recording 32-bit float audio on your MOV files. Granted, you're running into a 24-bit audio signal that's getting sent to the camera, but you could use other microphones in return to like mitigate that issue.
Yeah.
But cool, man. Well, thanks for joining me on this episode.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. If you guys are interested in seeing another video where I talk to Josh Cameron about overheating on these cameras, check out that video right there. YouTube recommends you like this video right here. Until next one, guys. Peace.